Okay, welcome. I can see people joining in already. So, welcome to our show. Let me make sure I have our chat activated properly. So, let me set this up and then I'll tell you exactly what we're doing. Um, if you are able to in the chat, if someone or multiple people could just put in the chat if you can hear us, say yes. And I'd love to know where you're checking in from. I always like to know what the weather's like. Actually, how's it where you are, Michelle?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's a balmy 80 degrees, beautiful skies. Yeah, fantastic.
Good, good. Well, for our guests that are joining on, there's quite a few here. So go to the chat, make sure you change it to everyone at the bottom. And then thanks, Steve is the first one to say, yes, I can hear you. He's in Rogers, Arizona. Share or Arkansas. Share what the
Arkansas.
temperature's like. Toronto's checking in, Georgia, 86 and balmy, humid. Where are you checking in from, Michelle?
I am in northern Utah today. I am on visiting family. So
Oh, beautiful. Well, thanks for
I
carving
know.
out time to do this.
Oh yeah.
For all our guests who are joining on, this is how to grow a wildly successful CFO firm. And that's exactly what Michelle did. I'm pointing like this. I don't know where she's on your screen, but that's exactly what Michelle did. So in the past few webinars I did, I was just sharing strategies that we were utilizing with our members and that we utilize internally. But I thought this one would be better just to interview you, Michelle, get feedback. I invite our guests that are checking in right now, turn off the distractions. We don't, we won't be sharing this recording. So just make sure you're taking copious notes and you're fully here. We'll probably go for 30 to 45 minutes. I will share a little bit about Profit First Professionals because maybe you'll discover that's a fit for you. But the core goal here is for you to take powerful content away. So, Michelle, just a little bit of background. I believe you started yourself in a career as a bookkeeper, and now you're operating a business. Can you give us some details around that?
Yeah, we were 100% bookkeeping
Okay.
as a firm of sum of all numbers. And in 2017, recognized, could see on the horizon that AI was coming in. And so we knew that if we didn't start doing something differently, that we were going to be out of a job. And, that's 8 years ago. But we just saw that coming. And so there was a lot of internal, what do we need to be doing differently? What do we need to be adding to this? We had always decided not to go into tax, and so it was purely, yeah, we are bookkeeping only, so
Mm. Well, tell me, like what when you did bookkeeping only, what was the price structure like, and how did you charge clients? So I want to get a context of how you improved or changed
so
that model.
oh, it's absolutely, almost hysterical at this point because you will never hear me say that we are a bookkeeping company because immediately, then it's $200 a month for everything, we own you, and that's
Yeah.
all it costs because my uncle's brother's sister who's home from college can do the bookkeeping. So there still is something that we are overcoming even to this day in the workforce of, or just in the general industry of what a bookkeeper does,
Mm.
and and not having a price point that is really indicative of what we do. So it was hard. It is, and it's still hard even to this day.
I'm curious. My head's darting around the screen because I'm just trying to check out our guests and all this stuff. As a guest here in the chat, do you get price pressure? Do your clients do that, like what Michelle has experienced? Oh, you better be below a certain price point. I'm just curious, yay or nay, or maybe you can give some context. Um, Interesting. Penny says, yeah, absolutely, of course. Actually, Amari, thanks for saying that. Of course, it is kind of this default thinking. So, Michelle, per Penny, Omari's, Karen's experiences, how do you break out of that? What was your strategy?
Um, so the term bookkeeping is hard. I think forever it's going to be that. And I
Yeah.
say that in the sense that somebody can say, "Oh, I pay the bills for your company. I'm a bookkeeper." So there is a lack of understanding as far as how much a bookkeeper can do from start to finish. So, but a client doesn't care. They truly don't care about all those nitty-gritty details. We want to say, "Oh, we do this and we do this," but it does, at the end of the day, they still want to pay a very, very small price.
Mm,
So at that point, we had to say, "All right, what are we going to add to this or make ourselves so that it's, no, we are a trusted advisor, a trusted partner with you. And that is the piece that allowed us to kind of open that door to say, we are not just doing something, we are something for you and your
Mm.
company.
So you moved to becoming a fractional CFO, or was it a different?
Well, it
Sorry.
was a kind of a cute little like jump step. So at that
Okay.
point, Profit First had just come out.
Yep.
And we saw that and we're like, "Oh, this is perfect. We know these numbers. This makes completely perfect sense to us. Let's jump into that." And so we implemented Profit First. And that allows us then to have a different tag that went with it of, "Hey, we're not just a bookkeeper. We're going to help you implement Profit First."
I
But
got you.
at the end, so and Mike, the thing is that when you're good at implementing Profit First, you get the company profitable. So this is what happened. They would say, "Okay, fine, we'll pay $800 a month for that." We'd get them profitable in 2 quarters, 3 quarters, whatever it was, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Okay, now we'd like to go to you're just the bookkeeper, we don't need you anymore. We don't need you to be we don't need you to be the bookkeeper or we don't need you to be the Profit First professional anymore, we
Oh,
need you
because
to
they've
just."
they've mastered it. Okay, well, that's a problem for you.
Like, it was horrible. Well, and as
Thanks
a
for making us
business owner.
wealthy, and now see you.
Well, and yes, exactly. Or no,
Hmm.
not see you, just we only want to pay for the bookkeeping
Oh, I
part of
see. I see.
this.
Okay.
Does
Okay.
that make sense? So it's
Yeah.
like that we added that value, but then they're like, well, we don't need that value anymore. And and yes, though our time wasn't in making them profitable, there was a piece of I'm making budgets. I'm hiring people based upon what my recurring revenue is. And so as a business owner, I thought, well, I'm planning on $800 a month. I'm not going back to 200. So the funny thing is our salesperson said, Just do something magic, Michelle. Just do your magic. You know your magic, and then and give them more." And I was like, "What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Magic?"
Yeah.
And at that point, it was the aha of what is it that our clients are looking for? And it's that fractional CFO piece. And
Mm.
that term is, I'm going to say that's a buzz phrase right now. And it's been, I've heard it as financial planning and analysis. So it's like FP&A. Are you an FP&A firm? Are you whatever you
Mm.
want to call it? It is really how are you going to walk alongside the
Mm.
owners of another company and in essence interpret what all these numbers mean. And that's what we're good at. We know numbers. And when you are able to lean in and say, that's what that number means, this is what this number is going to lead you to this, then that was the magic. So and that's what the jump. So it kind of happened by accident. Actually, it happened by force by my salesperson
Yeah.
saying, "I'm signing up this person, go just do it." So yeah.
But I also heard you changed your label. I mean, do you call yourself an FP&A firm now?
Well, um, it's kind of funny because I'll call it whatever the person needs to hear. And I've often said, like some of my colleagues, I'm
Oh,
like,
interesting.
so what is a fractional CFO? What is what is
Yeah.
a financial planning? And we sit down there and we list everything out. And so this is where the clarity really came in, and I'm going to give you credit for this, Mike, where you did those sprints for us, and I was sat there and said, "I'm not doing this sprint," and I left the room, and then I came back in and I said, "Okay, I'm going to do this sprint." And what I did is I said, "What do we do? What will I do,
Yeah.
and what won't I do?" And I listed out absolutely everything. I will not touch your money. I will not be responsible. I will not wake up in the middle of the night for my business owner thinking, "Do you have enough money in the bank?" I will
Mm.
not do all of those, but I will look into the future for you. I will guide you. I will help you with your culture because the culture comes into what you're able to hire, fire, and get your clients from. And I made a comprehensive list. And that became this is what my fractional CFO services are, or meaning my company. So
It's almost like you built a wish list for yourself.
it was.
So it's interesting as you were sharing, Omari and Christy said this happened to us too, in reflection of the business outgrowing or no longer needing the profit first services. And Penny said, I had a client outgrow me. She hired a full-time CFO. It is crazy that you provide this great service to people, but then they think they're on their own. So I'm curious with Profit First, maybe you don't have a record of what happened with that client afterwards, but you got them profitable. They never were before. They said, "Oh, we got this now." Did they really get it? Was there a slip back? Did they come back to you needing the services?
Well, I'm gonna say that the first one who did that to me, he was sharp. He was really sharp and he
Okay.
did get it. So it was hard because like if they don't, I'll push back and say, you know, this will happen next or
Yeah.
this will happen next. And so um and the problem is that when you are dealing with a client, you're looking at their profit and loss all the time, and you know what your price is on that. And at
Yeah.
some point, when they're looking at taking the next step, then they're just looking at like, hey, if I downgrade my service with you, then you know, then I get to put that more money in my pocket,
Oh,
which you've just
totally.
taught them that.
Right.
So it's
Right.
hard to say like, "Oh, yeah, cut your cost there, but not my cost." So it
Yeah.
is something.
Yeah.
So along the way, my piece has been, what value do I need to add that they will never, ever, ever want to
Mm,
leave me,
mm,
regardless of what else is on that profit and loss? And I'm gonna say that it turns into a business therapist, which is kind of a silly word, but it really is that person that they can talk about those innermost fears because they're not going to talk to their spouse. They
mhm.
can't talk to their employees, and there's nobody else who understands the pressure that goes with money and decision making. And you become that key person with them. And at that point, they will never leave you because they're who else are they going to go to that just no, I mean, we've gotten to places where it's like, you have to take a vacation. Because I can see that this business is sucking everything out of you. So
Yeah.
I will not talk to you again until you send me a picture with you and your spouse and your child in a swimming pool. And then I'll talk to you again. And they did because it was like we see things and it's reflective in how the business is being run. And so when you become that now that is an uncomfortable place for most people in a bookkeeping or a CPA world because
Sure.
we like to talk about numbers, not about feelings or about behaviors and such.
Right.
But that is, I'm going to say, a piece of what a fractional CFO can be that somebody else in a company can't be because who else can talk about numbers and what it does to you as a business owner?
I'm just looking at the chat. Thanks, guys, for blowing it up because there's such great conversations. When I asked you, Michelle, about how that client did the profit first, you said they were sharp. And Christy's experience was that her client who left to try doing their own then flopped at it. But then someone mentioned, I think it was, I'm seeing if I can find it here. Yeah, Jennifer, the pridefulness that people have when they say, "I don't need you anymore," to come back, they don't want to be on their hands and knees. Samuel Thomas acknowledged business therapist is such a great term. I actually want to move on, Michelle. I want to talk
Sure.
about, well, I want to give one piece of advice to our group or one piece of experience that may help you. With Profit First, there's actually three stages of implementation. One is correcting the current state, and that usually takes about 3 months, and then the client's got it. But then there's also a past state, like all the debt, all the problems in the past needs to be cleared up, and we can help them. And then there's the future state. How do you amplify growth if that's your objective, while sustaining profitability? So there's ways to iterate, I think. But Michelle, specifically for you, when you were in for this bookkeeping model originally, you used Profit First to as a stepping stage, and still as an integral part of what you do. And then you've introduced, I'm going to say the CFO services, if that's fair, but I guess you
That's
called
great.
it FP&A. What was the pricing changes that you made in your organization, and how does that feel for your customers? How does it feel for you? What's the perception of that?
Um, we ripped the Band-Aid off, Mike, and we
What do
just
you
went
mean?
4 times.
Ooh,
4 times. We 4 times our price.
all right.
That's a big jump. And at
That's
that
huge, but
point,
it's a different offering too, right?
it had to be a
Yeah.
different offering to make such a big jump because we had to, in essence, put a little bit of shock into the prospect of you're going to get something different that you've never had before. You're going to get not just a review of your books, you're going to get an interactive session of what's going on here and asking questions and putting you in a place of how are you okay feeling comfortable uncomfortable with that.
Hmm.
as far as, the decisions they're making in their business. So we went from something like $300 a month up to $1,200. And we also said, you do not get to work with us unless you have some part of strategy, business strategy. And business strategy seemed to resonate. Like, we're here to look at this and say, we're going to make some business strategy decisions based upon your numbers. So,
And did you have massive client loss? I mean, these prices are such an increase. Did you gain
well,
client?
it
What was
was
the impact?
the best part. It was for us, it was during COVID. So
Okay.
you had people in a real crisis and they needed help and they needed clarity. So we kind of were fortunate in our timing of when it was launched. And
Okay.
so since that time, it has been, just very ups and downs. But we've doubled down on we know who our top client is, and it's okay to let there be a season of drought, because there seems to always be a business person who is ready to just catapult their business in a new direction or overcome a crisis that they're in, and they're willing to say, okay, let's do this.
Okay. So not every prospect is willing to pay the 1,200 a month.
Oh no,
Okay. But the ones that do, would you consider them a better quality client? Are they more profitable for
absolutely.
you?
They've got some real skin in the game.
Okay.
In fact, we can tell from the number one thing for a bookkeeper is, or the number one problem friction that you get, is you can't get information from the client. You can't get the statements, you can't get access, blah blah blah, all those things. And so by this, we immediately set the stage of, you will be present,
Mm,
you will be interactive with us, you will be engaged. We are not just in the background at the bottom of the totem pole. And honestly, from being in the place of a strategist, I do want bookkeeping to be at the bottom of what they do as a business owner. I want them out there making decisions, not collecting receipts and handing it over to someone. So at this point, we get them showing up or looking at us as, oh my goodness, I need to show up for this meeting. We're going to have some real things that take place here. And the other piece that was different for us was, we decided we will meet you wherever you are. This is not a program that we start off with, okay, what's your mission? What's your vision? We don't start off with those very foundational. We say, what is the problem you have right now, today? Go. And
interesting.
we jump right in, right
Yeah. Which is
in.
the current state. You're fixing their current state. I have a
Yes.
belief that if a business isn't healthy today, it doesn't matter what you do. In other
No.
words, what I do is I pretend they have no debt, no past problems, no responsibilities. I don't care about future opportunities. I say simply, the business today, not considering those components, is it healthy? If not, we got to fix that, because you can't
Yeah.
sustain an unhealthy business. Um, what? So you're doing profit first CFO. I mean, is that how you position yourself, as a profit first CFO, or how do you position yourself
That
today?
I'm gonna say that we do CFO services implementing profit first. So
Okay.
everyone gets, and honestly, Mike, what makes a healthy company? Well, it's those percentages.
Yeah.
That's
No,
what it
totally.
is at the and so when somebody said, that's my whole basis foundation of, when they're like, is my business healthy? Because every business owner wants to know if their business is healthy. Well, healthy in what way? Healthy,
Yeah.
I'm like, healthy in the marketplace, healthy that if you wanted to retire, somebody else is like, oh man, I want you. And so where is that? And so all the time I'm like, well, let's go look. What is people throw out, what's my EBITDA? What's this? I'm like, I really don't care. I really don't care. We're going to see if your business is healthy. You can call it whatever you want. At the end of the day, I can tell you what expenses are a part of that and what expenses are not. And are you healthy or not? And for us, that's so easy when you work in the numbers every day, but it's not easy for them.
It's almost ironic, as a financial professional, you're pulling away the financials and just getting to the core. Is it healthy, profitable, or not? Ignoring all the
Yep,
dancing.
yep.
What are the mistakes you see when you work with a client prior to working with you? What are the mistakes that they're making over and over again, if they are repeating mistakes, that you typically have to fix?
The excuses that the business owner has for
Like,
why
wait,
the
like what would that
position that
be?
they're in, and so But I'm gonna just say that it's really hard to be humble and say, "I've made this mistake." So I talk all the time, I'm like, "You just got your honorary Harvard degree by going through that because 'cause you'll never make that mistake again." So we kind of, flip it so that it's like, own it. In fact, I'll tell my team, I'm like, "When you make a mistake, own it, learn from it, move on, go. Don't dwell on it." The excuses of the mistakes that have been made, but I really believe that, some of our magic that comes into being this fractional CFO is to tap into the behavior of the owner and to
Mm,
recognize what is holding them back because of them. It's like their behaviors, and if you graph out what a typical entrepreneur is, it's like they have very little patience, they think they're right, they go off of their gut. That's what makes an entrepreneur. Well, guess what? That leads to problems at sometimes. Sometimes it ends up in brilliance, and then but a lot of the times it ends up in problems, and so, at that point, I'm not trying to squish anything, I'm trying to say, "Alright, you've got this that is holding you back." They're also so good at sales, and so you
yeah.
see that business owners who are trying to grow, I can look and I'm gonna say probably everyone on this call, you can look at a P&L or a balance sheet and you can immediately see the behaviors of a client. So this
Mm,
one client, it was like high revenue one month, no revenue the next, high the next. And I looked at this and I said, looks like you're doing your sales, aren't you? And he's like, how did you know? I'm like, because you're out there doing the sales and then you have a hammer in your hand for the other month. So then
yeah, yeah,
sales
yeah, yeah.
end and then you're back out there. So at that point, to point that out, it's very natural. We see the trend, we see the pattern, but to point it out, then all of a sudden he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna listen to you because you just identified me." And I'll have clients all the time say, "How did you know?" And
Mm,
it's that piece I think that, when I say magic, I'm not unique in this, Mike. It's people who knows numbers. We see things, and that's what brings our value there. So in that case, I was like, for this, his excuse was, well, I need to be out there. I'm like, what are you good at? Can anybody else do the sales? Not as good as I can. Can anybody else swing a hammer? Yeah. All right. So let's crunch some numbers. Let's see what it would cost for you to hire a guy who swings a hammer. Looks like you can afford that. Now you get on sales. And I made a sign and sent it over. I'm like, you have to print the sign and put it on your, take the hammer out of your hand. That was it. Now he had
so
to be
smart.
accountable to me too, because I could see it. There you can't hide from it.
When I'm with audiences, I'm actually just heading out to do a presentation in Mexico, and I'll do this question. I'll ask the audience by a show of hands, who would rather make $100 an hour in this room versus $10 an hour? And the $100 an hour, of course, gets the hand raised. I said, okay. I said, now who wants to make $100 on your own sweat? You got to earn that by working, or $10 that gets given to you every hour on the hour for 24 hours. It's every day. It's automatic. And then the hands start waffling because you could work really hard and maybe pull off a day where you work 8 to 10 hours and you're getting $1,000, but automatic is only 240. So it's 50-50. Then I say, what if the $10 could be amplified to 20 or 30 or over time be well over 100 on automatic? Well, then all the hands go there. And I think that is an illustration of what a business is. In the very beginning, it necessitates that we, the owner, do all the work. And therefore, you work so hard and you make as much money as you can. And because you're so skilled, you can probably make a premium. But once you start assigning the hammer to other individuals, while you're not making as much money on the individual, it is an automatic return. And that's what scaling is. The more people that can do that for you, the more you can make money automatically. So, something I
I think
observed.
that's the key. If you had to identify in the business trajectory, Mike,
Yeah.
that's exactly when the fractional CFO comes in.
Oh,
Is that
interesting.
they know everything. They know where they store the paper as well as how they make a sale as well as how they produce the product. That's why they started their business. But now they're trying to scale and they're trying to remove themselves and they don't know how to do it and they don't know the impact it's going to have on their money. And so as a fractional CFO, we can in essence see the future because we know, all right, it takes 3 months before an employee becomes profitable for you, before they start making that $10 because otherwise, it's just easier for us to do it ourselves. So we set the stage for that and say, all right, it's going to be 3 months, but how are you going to find them? Oh,
Mm,
you're gonna put an Indeed out? Well, guess what? No, you're not. If I am your fractional CFO, I'm not letting you do that because I know what happens. You're gonna be swamped. You're gonna be swamped with resumes, and you're also going to be it's gonna cost you a fortune because we know these pieces. We see them in P&Ls every single day. So no, we're gonna dial down. We're gonna put a piece on your website that says, I am hiring for this things. All those little things that we just know that is brings about success, and we are their transition. We help them transition in that. That's the key place where they're finally ready to say, I need help, and we are that help. At that point, you become their superstar and you walk that path
mm.
with them, and they're like, I need more. How do I do more of that? Well, it's easy going for us, except that now it's like, all right, what's the next thing? And that's the piece is there's always a problem to solve when you're a business owner. It's not a crisis, it's just a problem. That's why people take W-2s because they don't
Yeah.
want to deal with constant problems. And so now now the constant problems are, "Okay, I can't wait, I'm gonna be talking to you, in 2 weeks, Michelle, we're gonna talk about this, because I'm holding the problems to then bounce off and brainstorm and come up with the solution together. They're not alone."
Yeah, that is the nature of the business. I'm curious, don't answer this yet because I want to ask our audience first. We have quite a few people here. I'm asking the audience right now, if you could put in the chat, your clients, what's the average number of employees these businesses have? I'm just trying to get a sense of size. And if you have to put a little range, that's fine too. But are they one person operations? They have 3 or 4 folks, including the owner. Is it 10 or more? Put that in the chat. And here's a question I have for you, Michelle, because I'm curious what our survey is. And it takes some time for people to put that in there. But what size businesses typically, and I'm thinking at either revenue or employee count, does the owner see the need for a fractional CFO? Oh, can you hear me? Or are you thinking?
No, you want my answer?
Yeah, I
I
want
was
your
waiting
answer
to
now.
see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Now I want your answer.
So through lots of experience, I'm gonna say between the 1 and 3 million, and you know, Mike, that going from 1 million to 3 million is a really it is like a
And one that's you depending on the business, but in a service-based business, that's 4 to 8 employees is 1 million
yeah, yeah.
typically. And so I was just curious, so look, a lot of folks here, 1 to 3, 2 to 10, a lot of folks are already serving businesses that based upon that little, it ain't science,
They're
but
stuck. They're
yeah.
stuck. They can't the business can't get past it. They're like, "What am I doing wrong?" So if we when we jump in, it's typically they've gotten to 1 million, a business has gotten to 1 million, but then they're like, "Why am I stuck? Why am I just turning this wheel over and over and I can't move past it?" And that's where they say, "Okay, I've tried everything I know. It's time for me to bring someone in." And
Okay.
my experience has been, they're not just like, "Oh, life is dandy, I would need a fractional CFO."
Okay. So
That
it's
has
usually
not been
burnout.
the situation. It's been, "Life is not dandy, I must not know something. I need some help, and I want it to be money-based. I want it to be money-based. I don't need my assembly line more efficient," though that does go into the dollars, but they're like, why could I get to 1 million so easily and I can't anymore? I need some expertise."
Okay. So it's stuck. And I remember, as we were preparing for this, you were talking, I think you had a story of a real estate agent or something
Yeah.
that went through this and you helped her or him with profit first and CFO services. Do you know what story I'm talking about? And can you share it?
I
Okay.
do, and it was such an unfortunate thing. First of all, she looked like she was probably 60, but she was 80. She was 80. She'd gone
Mm,
through a divorce and gotten nothing out of the divorce, Mike. It was horrific.
mm,
She was a real estate agent in Palo Alto, which is, posh area of Northern California, and it was COVID. And
mm,
California shut everything down. But she recognized that her niche was all of these 80-year-olds that had lived in Palo Alto for 40 plus years, and they needed to move into assisted living. So at this point, all she had was unemployment, of which
yeah.
California was very good. about helping people through COVID. So we knew exactly she had this amount, but there was no savings, there was no retirement. She had been living off of credit cards, so it was over $100,000 in debt on her
Oh,
credit cards because there was nothing else, and she really was in a crisis. And her daughter had implemented a profit first for herself and said, she's like, you need help. So at this point, we recognize again the behaviors. What is it that this person needs and can do? And let's give an infrastructure on this. So we had three phases. One, it was get through the crises of COVID, of being shut down.
mm-hmm.
Second was make some money, because at this point it was like just survive without getting into more debt. Second was make those sales, the escrows there. And then the third was a true profitability. And we started in April. And this was why it was such a feather in the cap, was that we started in April. And she, in that, don't go into more debt. We had our strategy session together. And that's the other thing I call it. I'm like, I call it a strategy session. I put it on the calendar as a strategy session. This is what we're doing. And she says, Michelle, I went through Taco Bell. I wanted the blah, 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 but I knew that I would have to borrow. I only had $5. So I changed it to just a crunchy taco or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You hurt because here's an 80-year-old
Yeah.
choosing to eat something different. And then at the same time, I was like, I am so proud of you. I'm
Yeah.
so proud of you for making these tough decisions.
Yeah.
So at that point, I didn't have to convince her. She was in the game. She was in the game. So she had these escrows that by year end, she was out of debt. We had
Wow.
that strategy, out of debt. And of course, Mike, if you make one sale in Palo Alto, it's a nice hefty
Oh, yeah.
commission.
Yeah. It's true. It's
And
true.
she had it lined up, but she was so dialed in that she had a $70,000 tax bill. Thank you, California and the IRS, because there were no deductions or anything. And she came crying. And I said, why are you crying? And she goes, I owe 70,000. I said, we've got your vault account. There's 70,000 sitting there. And she
Yeah.
had completely forgotten it.
That's the
And so
best
at
part.
that, yeah,
So,
it was
so
the
you were
best
helping her
part.
company preserve the taxes and actually hiding the money in this an
Absolutely.
account that's
Uh,
not visibly accessible.
knowing this is the piece that I think that when we have the imposter syndrome, it's like we know if you're profitable, you're going to owe taxes. So
Mm-hmm.
plan for it. What else do we know? If you're going to hire someone, you're going to have all this labor burden and chaos. So we plan for it. That is the natural part of anyone who runs a bookkeeping or a CPA firm. Man, we plan way too much, Mike, just way too much. But that is the skill set that is needed for an entrepreneur that makes us the best trusted advisor.
And what do you think is the necessary mind shift that you had to make, maybe anyone listening in right now, to go from their traditional service set accounting bookkeeping to become a profit first CFO?
Um, the the di- I'm going to say the biggest mindset was I assumed that they knew more than I did at every
Mm,
turn. And whether that's a Michelle thing or the rest of us. So and at that point, I thought, I don't have to know the answers to everything. And there's real power in saying, I don't know, but I'll find out.
mm.
I don't know, but this is what the evidence says, or whatever else. So that was the biggest mind shift that needed to take place, was I don't have to know. In fact, a lot of times they will say to me, okay, I want you to forecast where am I going to be? And I'm like, that's great. Tell me how much you're going to make next month.
Yeah.
And then they look at me like, I'm like, okay, we're in this together then, aren't we?
That's so
Let's see what
smart.
we think. Right?
Yeah, that's so
So,
smart.
so that was that, and this is the piece, Mike, when we're looking at, and I'm assuming our audience here is mainly bookkeeping, CPA, those type, right? Is that
Hmm.
kind
Yeah,
of
that's correct.
okay? So we're so used to having actual concrete, yes, right or wrong answers. That is why we're in this profession, because we like math is math. It's either right or wrong.
Yeah.
But when you enter this field, there is no right or wrong. There only is, this is a good, better, best decision. This is, we're going to take this risk. I'm going to say, another pitfall is you've got these companies that are like, especially right now, we're like, we were in our glory days in COVID. We just want it to return. You can say, I hope COVID doesn't return. I want
Mm,
your business. You know, your business could be that. And at that point, our job, and I'm going to say this is where the right, better, best, good, better, best comes in, is I can say to a client, you have too much emotion in this. And of course, I'm not going to say it like that because that's rude. But I will say, I'm gonna say, how long do you want to continue on this? Give me a
yeah.
date in the future that you're willing. And there's always a date, just like there's always a number where there's no emotion associated with it. So they're like, well, I'm okay. So today is July 23rd. I'm okay with January 31st. I'm like, great, we're going to put that on the calendar, January 31st. You can continue trying to return to your glory days. Again, I'm being very rude right now. I won't say it like that until January 31st. And at that date, we're not. We're going to let those people off. We're going to shut down the app or the new website you're
Yeah.
trying to launch or whatever else. But you choose this future date. Again, no right or wrong, except the right part is money will be gone, Mike. It will be
Mm,
gone. And I
yeah.
can tell you, when it, so I'm like, now I've got buy-in. Do you know what happens between now and January? They work harder than anything. They try everything that's gonna work, and you're walking alongside them. And I want them to succeed, but I also know that they are going to let it go and
Yeah.
follow what I think needs to happen. Because I'm not sitting in their office. They can fire me at any time. When you're a real CFO that has a real job, they own you, 40 hours a week. This is different. You're an
I do find it
accountability
interesting.
partner,
Yes. I find it
but
interesting. Yeah. Oh,
they can dismiss you easily.
that's right. That's right. I do find it interesting how um, business owners, and I'm including this, that will do something for so long that's not working, achieve a point of frustration where they look for a CFO, a profit first CFO specifically, and then revert back and say, you know what, I'm going to keep doing it the way I was doing it. There's like this relief in just that I made an outreach, but I'm going to revert back to how I was doing it. And then they struggle along further. So I'm just wondering, once you're invited to be in, do you have, is there certain things you can say or do to convince them to facilitate change? Because if you come in and you're trying to facilitate change for them, but they're not willing,
Yeah.
it's going to be a
That
struggle at best.
so that is the biggest now, I think you've pinpointed the biggest mind shift that has to happen if you're going to enter in this field, is that you have to recognize that you've got the answers, but how are you going to help that person make the changes?
Mm,
And you've got to create that trust that is real and genuine. In
mm.
fact, my husband will say, I'm like, they think you love them, Michelle. And I'm like, well, I do care
Yeah.
about them as people and individuals. That's why I can say you've got to nurture your family and your marriage and all of those other things. But in an entrepreneur's life, there is no difference between their personal life and their business life, Mike. As much as we'd like to make there to be, and especially when you're in that 1 to 3 million, there is nothing. And so the mind shift is, how do I have to interact with this person in order to change their behavior for their betterment of themselves and their business? And a lot of times you can recognize what's going on here. Oh my gosh, their personal life is sinking their business. They're taking
Hmm.
so much out of it. So
Hmm.
it is very uncomfortable for my employees to hear me in a strategy call say, we need to talk about your personal budget. Your spouse is overspending. Your personal credit cards are sinking your business. That is like a, oh my gosh, taboo. We don't talk about that
I
stuff.
have to.
But they where who else is gonna talk to them about that? So and of course, this doesn't happen in the first couple of months, but after the relationship is established and you have tried to solve every other problem that is just right there in the face, then there have been times where like, can I bring my spouse in on this? And then
Oh,
you
that's
tap in
good.
and say, okay, what's the behavior of his spouse? We had his spouse was from South America. She had lived her whole life in, I don't know if I'm going to eat tomorrow. So as soon as she saw the money, she spent it because I might not eat tomorrow. So he's like, "We have a trampoline inside our house for our kids because she saw money and she wanted something fun for our kids. Why did she
Mm,
spend?" And so I said, "You just need to give her, say, every month this is going to still be there." And again, solve that problem. Now he could focus on the business again because I don't want to say the wife was a problem, but he solved what was distracting and also what was taking from the business. Now, nobody is gonna say, "I'm gonna be fractional CFO and turn into a marriage therapist," but my trajectory has been is if you don't put take the mind shift is nothing is off limits, and if it is off limits, I'll tell you, "I'm sorry, I'm not qualified for that. I'm sorry,
mm.
you're gonna need your CPA. I'm
Well, that's
sorry, I think it's time for you to see that." Otherwise, I just tell them, "Nothing is off limits, you cannot tell me too much, but if you get to that point where I am not the best person to help you with that, I'm gonna tell you."
that's great
So,
framing.
very, very different than being, in a numbers-based profession.
I have a question for our audience. So post this one in the chat because we can prompt Michelle with it. When you get resistance from a prospect, what are the justifications or reasons I can't work with you? So they say I need a CFO, and then they say, but you know what, I can't because fill in the blank. I'm just curious what the points of resistance are. I have one that comes to mind I want to ask you. But first, Michelle, Steve Lay said, how many clients is reasonable, meaning a reasonable number, to be serving at any given time with CFO
Um,
services?
that's a great question, Steve, and I'm gonna say after 5 years of doing this, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the problems is that the gap widens. So for me, I had to say, like, I created a monster and I carried the monster on my back because I was the only one who could answer everything. So I had to say, how do I scale this business? And so that's a topic for another day. This is how I scale it. This is how I'm going to teach my team to do that. But at the same time, there is a gap, and there isn't anyone else who can be Michelle in my company. And just by nature of if you're an entrepreneur, you think like an entrepreneur, and the people that you hire are not entrepreneurs. Okay. But if a client never gets to talk to Michelle, but you get the answers that Michelle would give, then they're okay with it. But I had to shield clients from me, that they never got to hear me because as soon as they heard me, they didn't want anyone else. It'd be like you, Mike. It's like if once they got to work with you, why would they want to work with anyone else? It just is what it is because of our experience. This a gap is there.
Right.
And guess what? We're constantly improving. So the gap gets wider and wider and wider. So now I can say, if you want to work with Michelle, the price point's way, way, way up here. And some of them do. And now we're into the 100 employees. So the
Mm.
people who get to work with me are at 100 employees and their revenue is a lot bigger and such. But if you want a fractional CFO, you get my team with me teaching the stuff behind to my team.
So,
Now,
oh,
the
keep
second
going.
part is we love what we do. And by nature, CPA bookkeepers, we work too hard. So you have to decide what is my quality of life and this is all I'm going to take. And then what happens is because what we're doing is not a canned thing, then you raise your price. Hey, I only want to take 10 clients. Okay, well my waiting list is 20 long. Great, raise your price, the waiting list will go down. So all of those things I think are Steve's question here is you've got to in your business you're going to go through a trajectory piece like this as well. I know at this point that if a client comes to me, I know exactly how long I can promise them they will not need me anymore. Now, I don't say it that way, but I know exactly what it is. And now I can pitch my price point of this is going to be how much it is. And then you won't need me anymore. And but because I want the revenue there, then I've
Mm.
got my team that can step in. And so that has been part of the monster that I created that had to be solved. Um, Otherwise, what ends up happening is you like bookkeeping or CPA, all of a sudden you're like, I work myself to death. And I liked what I do, but I don't like it anymore.
Yeah,
The same thing will happen with a fractional CFO.
for sure. For sure. Well, I promised people I was targeting 45 minutes. That's where we're at now, but we did
Okay,
allocate an hour. So there's a couple more questions I have that I want to ask you and ones that
sure.
came in. Before I do that, just for everyone listening in, here's the link to Prop First Professional. So I personally worked with actually Michelle, but we as a company have worked with Michelle to help her grow her firm. She is a certified Profit First Professional, delivers those services. So if it's something that you want to explore, please go there, click a discovery call, and just talk to our team members to see if it's a fit or not. Michael Chafee says, keep going. He also asked, he also asked a question. He says, I asked, what's the point of resistance? And he shared something really fascinating. He said, they're not seeing or understanding the value of a CFO. So, Michelle, when you have a prospect that's like, I'm looking for a CFO, but they can't see the value, are there key things you need to express to them or a way to show them the value?
No, when they say, I think I need a CFO, then
Yeah.
my immediate question is, what does a CFO do?
Mm,
I make
it's
them
because
and
they have
I
a
make
totally
them,
different vision, right? They could.
yeah, because I'm like, what is it you think you need? Well, I need someone to forecast for me. Oh, very good. What else do you need? I need someone to see if my pricing is correct. Oh, very good. What else? I need someone to see if our profitability and manage that. Okay, very good. Great. Let me tell you what we do. And then this is not the necessary how we do it because it would take for forever, but then you're addressing it specifically because I don't think they know what it is that a CFO does. So likewise, Mike, I've had clients that say, I need a CFO. I need you to invest my money
Mm,
and I need you to move money in my bank accounts. We're not for you then. Because now they've told me what they need as a CFO. Well, that's not my expertise. I mean, I know where I would invest my money, but that's not what I do for a living is invest other people's money. So,
gotcha.
if that's what they need, I'm like, you need somebody else. I'm happy to refer you to someone that I know who that is their expertise. But I always ask and I'm not on the sales call, but my salesperson is as good a clone of me as there is. And so she does that same thing. What is it that you're looking for? And
Love
they
it.
tell you, well, guess what? Guess what gets talked about first?
Yeah, I
You
love it. And I just want
you
to go through these
show
rapid
up
fire.
as the like godsend to them.
Yeah, totally. We're running ton of time, so I want to get these out. So
Yeah.
the tip was, uh, if they don't understand or see the value of the CFO, ask what a CFO is. Next question was, or next resistance point was, this got DM'd to me. I can't afford to pay a CFO's price. Well, how do you address that one?
Yeah, so I always think about, who can't afford a bankruptcy lawyer? The person who's in bankruptcy,
Yeah.
right? All the time. And I'm like, you know what? I get that. What is it that you need to accomplish? Do you want to let's have a short runway here. And let's say, can you 3 months, 3 months, you will make a difference here. And so I don't want them to spend money either. But do you know when at our level, what I can do in 3 months, it will show the value immediately. So we usually put a very short line on it. A lot
Mm,
of the times I'm like, I need you, especially in those cases, I'm like, it's going to be a high price point, but every week you get me every single week because I need to fast track them. So after 3 months, you're not going to need me every week. Now, you know what happens, Mike? They're like, but I still want you every week. And guess what? They have the money for it. And then
right. They
sometimes I'm
find the
like, "You
money.
only need me once a month." "No, no, 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 I only want you." And, Mike, it gets to that point where I'm like, "Why are they paying me still?" Like, there are some that I'm like, "What am I offering here?" And sometimes it's just the assurance because they
Yeah,
already know
assurance
that
and trust for sure.
the assurance and trust, and I have to say I'm shocked, and yet at the same time, I'm like, "Okay, they're not getting this anywhere else in their life." So I
Yep.
am that person to them, or my
Okay.
company is that for them.
Let's do the next one. Really rapid fire here stuff. Someone asked, how do you explain cost versus investment?
So a lot of the times I know there's a lot of pieces that go around there. And so I don't want to come across as like the salesperson saying this is an investment. Most of the time I say, you've got a problem here. This problem can be solved. This is what it's going to take. Are you ready? And the
Mm,
confidence of which we can say that of this can happen, boom. And I'm gonna say that because it's not a one size fit all, but I am so comfortable with that. Like I will tap in and you can tell a lot just by a sales call there. So a lot of times I don't do the cost versus investment. I'm like this. And at the end of this, you're gonna have a solution or be
Yeah, it's
well on
excellent.
your
And you
way.
said you frame short time periods, you'll see
Short.
results. That is an investment. Next question came in is how are you leveraging profit first as a CFO?
What is that? Say that
How
again.
are you leveraging profit first in your CFO practice?
It's in absolutely everything. So it used to be that that people knew what profit first was, and so they had read the book or they knew something. Now at this point, then I'll say there are sound business principles of which Mike, here's a kudo to you. Mike is an expert at applying sound business principles. That so if you read any business book, it's applying a sound business principle, but this is a beautiful way to apply this.
Mm,
So when I'm talking to them, I'm like, it's not me who's brilliant. And guess what? Mike is brilliant, but not that brilliant. He took a sound business principle and he applied it. So guess what Steve Jobs did? He took a sound business principle, a be unique, have a unique product, and he was a brilliant at applying it, wasn't he? So you can say these brilliance. And so that is how I leverage everything. I'm going to go back to what's the principle we're doing here? What's the principle here? How are we going to apply it to you? And so that is where it is. Anyway,
I like the Mike is great, but not that great.
sorry.
Patrick, no, I love it. Patrick gave you accolades, one of the best speakers ever.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
Here's a question. What for our listeners, moving to a CFO practice sounds like it's a big financial win. You can be of greater service to your clients. You can leverage profit first heavily, but I'm not ready. So
Okay,
particularly in the advent of AI and all this insanity that's moving on, any perspective you have on the I'm not ready comment?
sure. Uh, Mike, if you approach me today and say, Michelle, we want to open up a profit first CFO things, we want you to run it, I would say, oh, I'm not qualified. That is the first thing that would come out of my mouth, Mike.
Hmm.
And when you ask me to do this, I'm like, oh my gosh, why did he ask me? There are so many other people qualified. So there is a mindset thing there. It's
Yeah.
like you know enough. And you know what else? You know more than the person sitting across from you. And so you're bringing something unique here. And
Yeah.
so you're never, ever, in fact, I'm going to say, for doing this for 5 years, I'm still, oh gosh, I still have those insecurities. But the thing is, when you step into it, just acknowledge the pieces where I'm like, I don't know the answer to that. And don't come and put say, I can't solve every problem. These are the problems. Stay in your lane. Don't be the, oh yeah, I can solve that. Oh yeah, I can solve that. But it be like, nope, this is what we're going to dial down. I can solve that. I can't solve what's going on in our economy. I can't solve who our president is and the whiplash we have. I can't solve any of that. All I can do is say, how are we going to react to this? How are we going to put safeguards around it? How are we going to not let that give our company whiplash? So
Mm, mm. So if you don't think you're ready, it sounds like you may be more ready than you think.
yeah, you will always find someone who is more brilliant or who is more
Always,
qualified or in your
always.
mind. So you just have to show up and say, what is it that I am good at? And then just lean into it. And I'm going to say that who I was 5 years ago is definitely not who I am now. So I know I'm learning things all along the way and be okay to adjust. That is another piece that's really hard for bookkeepers and CPAs is
Yeah.
like, I need to know all when somebody said I have a video course, I'm like, all you have to do is have the next video done. You don't have to have all 12 series done. So just be prepared enough for the next step. That's all you need.
My buddy works for Verizon. I don't know if you can see the picture there. He's on the left. I have that goofy sweatband on because I was getting sweat in my eyes. We went for a run, and after the run, there was I think 3,000 people that went in this run, and I came in whatever place, and I told the person in front of me like, "Wow, you really kicked my butt." And he looks back at me and says, "I didn't kick your butt." He goes, "We kicked everyone's butt that didn't show up." To your point, you'll always be behind
Yeah,
somebody, but if you're the
absolutely.
person that shows up, there's millions, I guess, billions of people on this planet who don't show up. So if you think you're not ready, you are more ready than you think. And when you show up, you're far ahead of everybody else. Michelle,
And
we got to
stop
wrap things up.
comparing yourself.
Pardon me?
Stop comparing yourself to the other person there. Like
Totally.
I don't have a Harvard degree, Mike. I didn't work for a Fortune 500 company. Does that matter? Well, yeah, it matters in my head,
Right.
But at the end of the day, numbers are numbers, and I used to get intimidated by big numbers and realize the same problems, how many zeros behind it, it's the same problems.
So, and look at the results you bring, you know? I would love for someone to have their resume that says, I didn't go to Harvard. I never worked for a Fortune 500. Thank God, you know? So we're going to wrap things up. I have a couple final administrative things, and I have a question for you, Michelle. So I put the link in. I know I put it a few times, so maybe sequentially actually on my screen. That is a opportunity to have a conversation with us to discover what PropFirst is doing, how to become a fractional CFO. We will guide you through that process and just see if it's a fit. I'm also proud to report that PropFirst is the largest brand in the world when it comes to cash flow management for small business. That's not hyperbole. I'm just very proud that we've achieved that so you can leverage the brand. So book that now. You'll connect with one of our team members and we'll go through it. Either Liz or Ron is who you'll talk to. Michelle, I just want to give you the final thought. We got a couple minutes where we have to wrap up. Um, any inspirational words or any final thoughts for our listeners on improving their practice, particularly in these kind of times?
Yeah, I'm gonna say is that when you're in the position that we're in, we have a big heart for small businesses and for entrepreneurs. And so when you've got that servant's heart there, this is a huge service. I will at the end of the day just say, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world." And my husband will say the same thing. He's like, "You're giddy." I'm like, "Yeah, because you're making a difference not just in a business life, but in an individual's life." Like our mission is to bring drive entrepreneurs towards financial peace. And sometimes that peace is that they get to sleep at night or know that somebody else is thinking about them or that they have someone to talk to. And it is extremely rewarding.
Thank you for that. One last thing, and Jess, thanks for reminding me. We got a little surprise for everyone. We normally require a deposit for the discovery call. And the reason we do that is we have more than enough people asking to talk with our team to learn everything about Profit First. And it's valuable time for both sides. So that's why we have this little speed bump to make sure people are really interested. I do have a coupon for you. It's only for you guys. It's only be live today until Friday. But if you're interested in booking a discovery call, use that code CFO250, and we are waiving that deposit. So you don't have to be concerned with that. Michelle, thank you. I think the accolades you received were more than justified. You just shared such great insights, such powerful stories, but also, at least for me, you made it so accessible and candid. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll see everyone. Michelle, thanks for being a Profit First professional. And everyone, we'll see you in our next webinar. And I hope to see you on the discovery call. Bye-bye.